Hey, Ian, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Excellent, man. I can hear you as well. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Considering how freaking busy you probably are, I'm amazed that we can find the time on our schedule.
Yeah, I am busy. I never thought I'd be one of those busy people.
Oh, is that your 3D printer right there behind you?
It's my old one.
Okay,
It's free to a good home at this point. I just upgraded to the bamboo.
nice.
And
Is that the bamboo? Is what's different about it? Larger platform, probably, or
no, it's it's like they made such a leap forward in the space. It's basically an appliance. This thing is great. Like if if you're into like constantly messing around and tinkering with things and troubleshooting, the bamboo is like it's like a dishwasher. You put the dishes in and the dishes come out clean.
oh,
And
nice.
it really is. You just and it's fast too. It's super fast.
What kind of filament do you use? Do you have
Mm,
a go-to filament for your like I was checking out that tray that you've done, the Gridfinity.
mhm.
Yeah. Is that does that take a specific filament that's
So
just more rugged and long lasting or
that was printed in ASA, and
oh, okay.
you could print it in PLA. PLA has problems with temperature resiliency, and so
Mm,
I was just kind of gearing up to see if I could produce these. Like, if somebody has like a heat lamp on their bench or something like that, and
mhm.
it gets close, it's your neck rest is going to go. It's going to start melting. But for most practical purposes, PLA is just fine.
How
But
often you've got the since we're talking about 3D, we dove right in and it was on my list, but not at the beginning.
uh,
You've got the Ian Davlin, uh, the curator of the Looth Group, right? .com. Is
mhm.
it theloothgroup.com?
The URL is just loothgroup.com.
Loothgroup.com. And you can subscribe through Patreon. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that it is an amazing resource. The compilation of having the Luth along the live chatting with luthiers around the world
Mm-hmm.
live in their studio. I've hopped in several times and asked questions and got answers, multi varying answers from different and you can actually combine all the answers into one solution, which is refreshing because
Yeah.
so many times we get solutions from one person and that's the only way to do it. But it's nice to have a perspective of different, here's a classical guitar builder, here's an electric guitar guy, et cetera, et cetera. Are you the sole curator of Looth Group?
Uh, a while back, so Looth Group started out as Ian Hates Guitars, which was a Patreon thing that I started in the early days of the pandemic, just because I was working from home and I wanted to stream on YouTube. I was just going to like stream my workday on YouTube,
Oh,
which is
smart.
actually kind of the genesis of the Luthalong. The idea was always there, but I needed to build a computer because I was trying to stream on a MacBook Air and it just was not working. And
Okay.
so my wife was like, "Why don't you start a Patreon? You probably build a computer with Patreon money, and then you won't have to beg me for family funds." And so we did it kind of thinking that it was going to like, you know, get like 50, $60 a month or something like that. And I think as soon as I announced it on my Instagram, I had, several hundred subscribers in the first day.
Wow. Wow. And wasn't that the pandemic? And we were all striving to reach out and connect with people
Yeah,
in
that
new and different ways. It was a different world for sure for everybody.
it, it is. And what the Luthalong ultimately turned into was the fact that it persists, especially for people working on guitars. We have a lot of people. I was very fortunate in my career to work in shops with multiple Luths, and several different occasions. I worked at a guitar factory, which was basically in addition to all the other people that you're working there and have guidance from, it's also all of the people that have ever worked at a guitar factory have just by, the evolution process, they've left things in their wake, little tools, little widgets, little processes. It's a real petri dish of knowledge, a guitar factory is. And but you get people that's just not their experience, and they get out of guitar building school or guitar repairing school, and they're immediately thrust into it without the resources of a mentor that you could call up. And so in a lot of ways, what we're doing with some aspects of this is producing a virtual mentorship and a virtual coworker, really. And if you go on the Looth Along, you'll find people there. Like everybody's working, like it's just like, and instead of it being some idiot behind you on a bench behind you, it's some guy in a tiny little window.
It's awesome. And is that streaming 24/7? I mean, anyone from any location on the globe could log in, and there'll be someone there.
We commandeer that link to do our shows, and we only have one Zoom. So when we do a Looth Pro event, then it goes away for the hour or 2 hours that the Looth Pro event is. But other than that, it's going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And awesome. We haven't had, other than myself, we haven't had any behavioral issues on there, really. Like I'm probably the worst offender. But we try to keep it, like a Thanksgiving that you're trying to make it through without an argument. We try to keep those the guidelines for conversational decency at Thanksgiving at grandma's house, where you want grandma to make it.
Well, that's an interesting question, Ian. Is, do you find when you hop in, have there ever been any disagreements and like healthy debates about, look, I mean, I know you think that this is the best method, but try this instead? I mean, do you see that happening? Well, like if I walked in, because when I walked in, it was varying answers, but no one stepped on each other's toes. Everyone is very gracious to each other. But do you get guys going, look, I've tried that and it doesn't work, or whatever?
Like almost everybody has so far framed all that in respectful terms. There's ways that you can say that's not how I would do it. And that's how I usually start things off. We haven't had any incidences where people were, trafficking in, real will not work answers. It will come up. It hasn't come up on the forum. It hasn't come up on the Looth Along, where somebody just has bad, impractical or bad information, and they're sharing it as though it's
the end all be all.
Yeah. In general, I was on frets.net pretty early on, and I've
is that a message board?
Yeah, it was Frank Ford's companion to frets.com. But and I've been on the gear page, and I've seen what happens on forums, and I have in my experience, there's a couple things that kind of make it so that we don't wind up going with those kind of tones. One of them is that, as leadership, and we have several people in leadership positions, but we just really have, for ourselves personally, we have like one kind of rule for how we engage in things, and it's just in general, no Looth on Looth violence. And what that means is it's really common, and I'm such a former perpetrator of this, but you see bad work, or you see work that's questionable, or you see work that you would have done differently, and it's just real crab pot mentality, where you're like, I know what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as an example of why I'm such a great Looth, and I'm going to let everybody know by showing them this bad work. But I find that the just that one simple rule, it doesn't matter if it's in group or out of group. In general, we're not in the business of saying what is what is acceptable work, what is unacceptable work. We're not. It's because frankly, there's nothing but bluster on those subjects that you can bring to it. There's no science, it's all opinion based, and the way that people tend to win opinion based arguments is by employing tactics like by being making other people feel bad and stuff like that. So in general, largely, I don't marshal the forum, but I just somebody on there recently just posted something and they're like, this, check this out, and I just was like, I just reached out to him in a DM and was just like, hey, we can phrase this differently, but in general, we do not drag other luthiers on here.
We're a sensitive crew.
Well, I just, it's something that I pinpointed as being, both a problem in my life and a problem in creating communities. I mean, you can certainly create a community based on, the Only Good Luthiers Club, and everybody is self-referential, and they're all pretty sure that they're all the best luthiers, and everybody in the club is the best luthiers. But eventually, you will have, somebody will say something, factions will form, and we'll get off to the races with, kind of toxic behavior. So, and then also personally, I noticed just in my own life, like the amount of charitability I show towards myself seems to be directly proportional to the amount of charitability I direct towards other people. And so from a mental health standpoint, I noticed it was to exclude that kind of, trying to figure out how to build myself up by tearing other people down.
So it was probably a really good approach that you changed Ian Hates Guitars to Looth Group. It's more of an encompassing, feel-good terminology that people will gravitate more towards than a guy who, vehemently says, I hate guitars, but I work on them all the time.
Well, that
warm and fuzzier feeling.
the Ian Hates Guitars thing was, it was twofold. One, there is, I certainly I don't like guitars anymore. But I can understand why people still do. And I should say that for a large part of my life, I mean, I really enjoyed working on guitars for 20 solid years. And there are people that have, that do things that they don't enjoy for 20 years. And so I have to count myself among the lucky on that standpoint. But the other thing too is, in addition to the no Looth on Looth violence and all that kind of stuff, one of the things that I wanted to make darn sure we did was, I don't want, and this is no disrespect to Fretboard Journal or any of the other people, but I don't want a place where guitar consumers can come in and have, and feel not necessarily not feel welcome, but I don't want them to feel like they're part of the conversation. I don't want people coming in and saying, hey, I got a Martin that needs a neck reset. Who wants to do it? Any of that stuff. I don't want that in there. I want a place where people can, people that are in the profession can speak freely and not have to worry about any kind of reputational stuff. So by and large, the Ian Hates Guitar thing, the name was also specifically to kind of ward off people that don't understand why that's funny. And everybody that's ever worked on a guitar understands why that's funny. So,
well, it's interesting. Well, and I was going to say it's interesting because I was telling my wife the other day that the only time I get to play guitar anymore is when I'm testing customers' guitars, which I can't stand because I used to love playing guitar for hours at a time, and now I just don't have that time. And I'm touching these amazing, like this Rickenbacker behind me. It's like, oh my God, I've always dreamt of holding one, but this is someone else's Rickenbacker. So I'm like taking all the time I can to play a Rickenbacker just to say that I've done it. You bring with you a wealth of knowledge, decades of history with the guitar. And can you expound on that? Where did it start? Did you start as a hobbyist as a kid, and then it just how did your story blossom?
I never did really, like a lot of these stories start, I didn't have a good guitar, so I built one, or my guitar was malfunctioning, so I fixed it. I really was not not one of those kind of people coming up. And so my thing kind of started, I was 23. I wasn't really doing much. I had washed dishes and been a janitor and that kind of stuff. And I was playing guitar again. But I walked into a guy's shop who was fixing guitars, and I just was like, I couldn't believe it. I asked him if he did apprenticeships. He said yes. And
wow.
And I did a 2-year apprenticeship with Ken Cartwright in Salem, Oregon.
Oh, wow.
Worked for free for 2 years and swept floors and.
Are you originally from Oregon?
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm a huge fan. I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and Seattle and Portland are our sister cities. So love the area. But you're in New Jersey now, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So anyway, I worked for him, and then I moved down to Eugene and got fired from 2 jobs down there right after my apprenticeship, and then wound up going back up and working for him for a couple of years.
Oh.
And then I moved, he moved his shop to Staten, and I moved to, there wasn't enough work to keep me on, so I got a job in Santa Fe and worked at Santa Fe Violin and Guitar for a while.
Whoa, okay.
And then
beautiful town. I love the Southwest.
Yeah, I've been, somebody just posted pictures of their vacation there, and I'm like, I got to get back there. There. But then I got a job at Breedlove Guitar Company, and
where are they located?
Oregon.
Oh, so you went back to Oregon.
I've been in Santa Fe for like 11 months or something like that, and like a total idiot. I was getting kind of homesick because I'd never been away from home before, and I was like, for the first time in my life, instead of like, like on a Friday, I'd have any of them, because I was in my hometown from 0 to 29 years old, so I had a lot of friends there. And so like any time I wanted to do something, I could just call somebody up and do something. And so for the first time in my life, I was doing things like on a Friday, I was going down to a bookstore and buying a book and going and drinking a beer.
Living a lonely,
reading a book. And it's kind of a funny story, but this story is very weird. But it just so happened in Santa Fe at that time, this kid had just gotten out of Red Wing, and he started working for this other shop in the town. And Santa Fe Violin and Guitar was a really cool shop. We had flamenco guitars, vintage guitars, violins, and stuff. It was a really cool shop. This other shop was kind of like one of those real NAMM show slat style, saxophone reeds and an occasional guitar and stuff like that. But anyway, this what would become a friend of mine was working there, and I didn't know him, but Jim, the guy that ran Santa Fe Violin and Guitar, he's like, he came in a panic. There's a new repair guy in town, Ian. We got to get our repair shop together. And I was like, hold on, Jim. I was like, if that guy's, because I knew the store and I knew it sucked, and I was like, if he's any good, I'll just get him a job somewhere else. I'd already kind of networked with a few people, and he's got to hate it there. And so I went and met him, and it was this young fellow named Derek, and turns out we had quite a bit of fun together. But the long and the short of it was, I called back home and asked Ken if anybody was looking for anybody, and Breedlove wound up calling me, and I was like, yeah, Derek. Derek's working at this terrible place. He looks like a good kid, blah, blah, blah. And Steve Henderson was still running Breedlove at the time. And he talked to Derek a little bit, but he knew I had more experience. And he was like, Ian, we'd really like to hire you. And here's the pay and the health. And, we've got health insurance. And I was just turning 30, and I had some weird lumps in my leg or something like that. And I was like, okay. And I was really homesick too. I really missed
whatever happened. Do you know whatever happened to Derek?
Yeah, the story gets more interesting.
Oh, okay, all right.
So anyway, Steve wound up hiring me. I go home, Breedlove is an incredibly challenging job right off the bat. Like factory work is like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And I went and visited my friends, and I was like, my friends are not that cool. I've made a horrible mistake. But because I had actually really become accustomed to like reading books and drinking beer by myself. It was really, really got the hang of it. But anyway, so I go, I worked for Breedlove for 4 years or something like that. And
you said you were on the production line at Breedlove? What did they have you in a particular place, like you're in finishing or you're in?
Yeah, I started out in string up, and it was really hard at first. And then I wound up getting the hang of it and was able to get out into other departments. And I wound up getting out into the finish department, and then wound up managing the finish department. So I would start out in string up, which was assembling the guitars, fretting the guitars, and dialing in the guitars. And then in the finish, did a little bit of body department, and then wound up having a dramatically unsuccessful go at managing production or part of production. And, it did not go well. Like,
can I ask Ian, what was the turnaround rate on a string up on a Breedlove guitar? How long did it take to do the fret, stringing, neck set, etc.?
So I produced 3 guitars every 2 days, and at that time, I don't remember what the numbers were. I know that when I got out of the factory, I could refret a guitar in about an hour.
Wow!
So I was pretty fast.
Nice.
It was like, no, I mean, you're moving as fast as you possibly can around a guitar. If it gets one scratch in it, it's a tragedy. So it was an intense job. Great experience though. But
no doubt.
But things got grim there. There was kind of a fella in charge of it that was absolutely, well, his nickname was started with Crazy, and then his first name, which I'm not going to repeat, but it did not go well. I wound up getting fired after 4 years or 5 years, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. But he met me I was rolling into work after break, and he met me in the parking lot with a box of my stuff and said, "It's been great working with you, Ian."
Wow.
I was like, "Can we curse on this?"
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I was like, it took you 5 years to figure out I'm an asshole. Like, so anyway, long story short, like all of a sudden, like just my entire world kind of came undone. I wound up having to move back to my hometown. This was in Bend, which is a really awesome place to live. Moved back to Salem, which is not an awesome place to live. And but I had all my friends were there and had an incredible support network. And I was kicking around there trying to get kind of a repair thing off the ground. And then I was also looking elsewhere for work, and I stumbled upon Gruen's website. Oh, by the way, when I left Santa Fe, I got Derek to go to Breedlove. I got Derek on at Santa Fe Violin and Guitar. And out of the flat store and into the cool store. So anyway, when I'm tooling around the internet, I see Gruen Guitars' website was looking for people, and then I looked at their staff, and there was Derek on the staff thing.
Oh, son of a gun! Where are they located? Gruen Guitars.
Nashville, Tennessee. So,
no doubt. Oh, cool.
So anyway, I call up Derek. It's a crazy shop, but I call up Derek. It's like for guitar repair, it was basically like getting called up to the bigs. But I called up Derek, and I was like, Derek, that's cool job you got there. And he's like, yeah, we just fired somebody. You want to come out? And so I flew out, and so I got to work at Gruen's for I was there 3 years, something like that. And then
what year was that? What year was that you made the move?
Let's see, I was there 2006 to 2009.
Wow, man, so, Nashville's a hotbed of guitar activity, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's pretty crazy. I mean, we've got in the Looth Group members from Nashville. I mean, we must have 15, 20, something like that, just from Nashville.
Wow. And now that we're talking about numbers on the Looth Group, how many members are there?
We're just went over 1,000. We're like roughly 1,040, something like that.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Where is if you were to look at because I know you have a demographic map on your splash page of like, how many people in this region, how many people in that region members. What's the largest density of population?
East Coast, for sure. We've got a lot in Europe too. We're getting more in Europe, and it's something that is on my mind to figure out how to get more global involvement and how to achieve that. It's challenging because as an American, I defiantly only speak one language, so it's really challenging to make a pitch to people and that we're more global when the person that's running the show is a single lingual yank.
Yeah, right. It makes you wonder if it is possible to have a all French Looth group, all Italian, all Spanish, etc. If that's even possible.
We certainly want to branch out into other offering other languages, and I'm talking to a couple people about doing something in Spanish, which I think is the next option. But right now, like our resources are such that really what I'm able to offer people in terms of currency is just increasing people's the same old stuff that a lot of these organizations have done before, which is just offering to give people exposure, give them a platform and, shout them out on Instagram and stuff like that. So there isn't, it's tough. It's tough to find people that are qualified to deliver information, and B, are not so aren't so busy that they have time and ability to. So
you've had the content on the Looth Group has remained diverse and vital for sure. I mean, you've got an event going on practically every day of the week with a guest speaker, or heck, I just logged in a couple of weeks ago and did ancient Chinese exercises for Looths from that guy in the UK, and that was awesome. I was just thinking it was going to be a talking head session where he's talking about ergonomics and how to best do your job at the bench every day. But it ended up becoming I'm doing, Tai Chi type exercises in the middle of my office without trying to hit my ceiling fan. It was really fun. It was actually very cool, and I walked away refreshed and just I felt like going to my bench and starting to do work. It was awesome. Very diverse. Very diverse.
Yeah, we're looking. I basically, I'll tell when I talk about this, I tell people that had I had a vision for what the Looth Group was going to be, I probably would have destroyed it. Like Lenny and his mouse of Mice and Men. Like it would have just been like I would have
and touch him and hug him and squeeze him.
Yeah. But just putting one foot in front of the other and going, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's try it. And that's how things like Ed doing ancient Chinese exercises for Looths works. And we have intent to expand that. I'm a firm believer. Like one of the things about this job is that, as a young person, I thought this was remarkably unfair, but you're really only valuable in this job once you get some years under your belt. And what your body is like when you get those years under your belt is going to determine whether or not that's a lot of fun or not. And so like figuring out how to do things like get ergonomic about your bench, figuring out how to do those things like, making sure that your core is strong when you're, standing at your bench all day. Like that's the type of stuff that's going to be make or break. And the Looth Group is a lot of things. And what I've always, from the very beginning, I grew up with, Asia and GAL and, great organizations and what they do is amazing, but they're always, artisanal lifestyle, hobbyist forward. people building instruments that largely like, you know, you got to have a lot of time, you know. And I always wanted to do something that was, you know, for me, like going back to my beginnings, like getting into guitar repair was like a giant step forward in life, you know, for vocationally speaking. And I was always looking for that information from GAL and Asia that was, you know, helpful to me to making a living. And sometimes they would have it, but it was, you know, it was the stuff. And this is, you know, being realistic about what publishing is like. They have to produce something that is going to sell. And, you know,
good point.
Tips and tricks on how to fill a nut slot with super glue is not, you know,
right.
Isn't as sexy as the blueprints for the double neck hurdy-gurdy. So it's
yeah, right.
That's the brass tacks of it. Now in the age of the internet, you know, publishing costs me nothing. You know, I put up a post of something that's maybe interesting to 10 people on the entire planet. And if you know, if those 10 people are serviced by it over, you know, a 5-year period of time or whatever, it just doesn't cost anything to produce that content other than the time to put it up.
That's true. And it makes me, you know, I just interviewed Emerson from Trying to Guitar on Instagram, and she's baffled by her success and how her account has blown up incrementally in less than a year. And I think it could be attested to the fact that every post she shares here's how I do this, here's how I do that. There's, you know, with the internet out there, we're creating our own personal Wikipedia or encyclopedia of knowledge that we can go back and tap into. There was no way to get those resources of knowledge, but now we have that. It's definitely a positive resource for sure.
It is that's the one thing I'd say that we do at the Looth Group is we do curate a little bit. We do have like it's hard. There is a lot of information on the internet. I don't want to do that. You know, there's good information and there's bad information. I honestly don't see a lot of bad information. I think there's been a winnowing process, just kind of, you know, just through attrition over time. You know, because a lot of things get tried and a lot of things get thrown out. Sometimes there's innovation, but I just don't see any. I don't see as much charlatanism as you might imagine on the internet. I see people, you know, I see people taking the wrong idea from information. I see people that have, you know, maybe spent their entire lives, you know, working at computers and then go, well, how hard is it to, you know, hold a chisel? And then they hold a chisel and they realize, oh, wow, you know, some people spend their entire lives working, you know, working with these tools to learn, you know, just to learn the muscle memory to use them correctly. Like, so.
Well, then that backs up to your story, because in my mind, I'm thinking, I really want to tap Ian's brain on the stuff that he's developed, like the heat stick and you know, the Gridfinity and stuff like. So you're in Nashville, mid 2000s, and you know, how did that get from there to New Jersey? I mean, you're obviously developing your own personal knowledge base of, here's the construction of a guitar. I've repaired guitars. You know, where's the journey going from there?
My wife and I, we reconnected in Nashville in 2009. We dated briefly in high school, and then, like a lot of people, late middle-aged, reconnected on Facebook, and then you know, as I said on Seinfeld, I batted around to the top of the order. So you know, we fell in love, and I'm not cut out for the South, like in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Culturally,
in what respects are you not cut out for the South?
Culturally and just climate wise, I mean, Nashville is
yeah.
It's just unpleasant. It's crazy unpleasant in the summer. And then the winters are actually quite a bit like Oregon. That just rains all winter.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like,
and it's not the dry heat of Santa Fe.
oh
It's
no,
a
no,
very
no.
dense, muggy.
I love Santa Fe. I love Bend. High desert living is my happy place.
Yes,
But but yeah, so when she was like, well, should I move to Nashville or should you want to move to New York? I was like, New York sounds pretty cool. So I moved to New York, and that
New
was
York City or New York State?
New York State. She was when I first moved, we were living in Westchester, which is north of the city by, but it was all right. Then we moved down to New Jersey because I was working I got on at Lark Street Music, and I actually like New Jersey. I don't know what we're in this little zone.
It's a bad rap. Yeah,
I can see the Empire State Building from my kitchen when the leaves are off the trees, and on occasion I have deer in my backyard. It's low density enough to have deer in your backyard, but you can see the Empire State Building. It's really
nice.
a neat little area, and
nice.
I can be. There's a bus that goes right in front of my house that I can be in at the Port Authority in 10 minutes, and be screwing around in the city if I want. It's a neat little area.
So Lark Street Music. So you decided to move to be with your wife, and you started on with Lark Street right away when you got there. Like, I need to find a guitar resource.
No, I opened my own shop in outside of Pleasantville for like a little under a year, and then I got a little lit up and was doing some interpretive dance on the sidewalk, and blew out my Achilles tendon because it was winter and there was ice on the ground. And I had
interpretive dance. I don't even want to know how that routine started, but I can imagine.
It was actually, I was trying to demonstrate to this fellow that I like to drink a little bit, and there's a lot of wild turkey involved in this one. But I was like, I was showing this young fellow that skipping is actually a more energy efficient mode of transportation than either walking or running. Okay. And so, funny story. I blew out my Achilles tendon, and I go to the doctor. There's a whole gross. It's just unbelievably gross. But anyway.
Yeah, because it just literally snaps and your foot just can't be pulled back onto your calf or something.
And your calf rolls up into the back of your leg too.
Oof. Yeah. Oh.
So anyway, I go to this guy who's ultimately going to be my surgeon for this, and he's like, so you did this playing basketball, right? And I'm like, no, sir, I did not. He's like, how'd you do it? Because he's like seen a million of these, and it's always like middle-aged men playing basketball.
Yeah, right.
So I told him about the whole, drunken skipping wild turkey story. She was like, all right. And then he goes, so what do you do for a living? And I said, I fix guitars. And he goes, those break? And I was like, buddy, you have no idea.
Interesting.
And then he goes on, he's like, I've got a guitar. I was like, oh yeah, wow. What do you got? And he's like, it's a Santa Cruz. Does that sound right? I'm like, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
You as an incidental screw around thing in your life, you've got a $4,000 to $5,000 guitar that you're not exactly sure what, I was just like, it was just like we just had this great little moment where I got to think about my life choices for a little bit. So I guess we're not hanging out.
A little reality check, huh?
Yeah. Not going out to dinner anytime soon together, me and my doctor. So anyway.
So you were So you were doing your own repairs at your own shop.
Yeah, I had my own shop.
How did that segue to go into someone else's shop like Lark Street?
So
were you doing both at the same time?
Yeah, I blew out my Achilles, and it was just like, it just put us so far behind. And I had gotten a sweetheart deal. It was like right after the financial meltdown, and this guy had this retail space where he just was doing nothing. He gave it to me to start out for next to nothing for 6 months. And then awesome. The next to nothing changed to, something. And and it just was like, it was clear to me that the the finances of running a brick and mortar repair shop only was not something I was like interested in doing. Like it was just too, it was too grim. One of the reasons why I brought on Doug Proper as a contributing partner to help provide content is he does it quite well. He just like, he doesn't care. He just charges what it takes to keep the doors open plus some, and he lets the chips fall where they may. I was still, when I was trying that, I was 40 and still, part communist or something like that. So I was like, like I was in the business of doing people favors, and the favor I did them was to, not provide them a service anymore because, I wound up realizing it wasn't cost effective to do it. So, but anyway, I briefly worked for a fella up north in Katona, and then got on at Lark Street, and we moved to New Jersey. And I worked at Lark Street for, probably from 2011 up to, so probably about 2019. So probably about 9 years.
Wow. And that's when Ian Hates Guitars started popping up on Instagram, and you started posting your ideas and
originally it was Martin Luther King to start off with, and that was like I had the idea that I was because everybody gets on Instagram and they're like I'm gonna produce stuff that's gonna attract customers. Guitar builders do it, guitar repair people do it, so a lot of the content is really guarded. It's always, got, 1 foot in the respectability world because you're trying to protect your reputation. So you're not going to be real about what the job is actually like. You're going to put on the image that you think customers want to see. Which, to be fair, customers don't want to see that, sometimes there's a whoopsie-daisy, I don't want to see it when I go looking for a doctor. Oh, I have some whoopsie-daisies. You're still going to get billed, but there's going to be.
Bill Cosby used to have a routine on one of his albums. When I was a kid, I grew up with the Bill Cosby album collection. I hate to say that because of his reputation now, but he has a routine where he talks about a doctor going, oops. And he wakes up from the table and goes, doctors don't say oops. What the hell just happened?
No, you don't want any oopses. And, guitars are not so, they're not so crazy that, that we can't, talk about oopses. But anyway, so the Instagram, I just thought it would be more interesting if I pointed it at other repair people. And other people in the industry. And so I kept it fairly, for reputational sake, I kept it fairly anonymous. I didn't, people figured out who I was, but I didn't do much on there to let people know who I was. It was mostly an anonymous account. And I wound up getting, a lot of followers pretty quickly.
Your entourage, I mean, I don't want to call it the entourage because that means they're gravitating towards you, but your associations with guys like Dan Earlywine and Stu Mack and Doug Proper and the really big names in the industry, was it blowing your mind? Like, wow, Dan Early, when they started like, hey, I like what you just did there, or, that was it like, wow, I never expected it to blow up this big? And
honestly, I didn't ever really think about it. Like, in terms of my career being at its craziest moment, that's probably like going back to Gruen Guitars, like where I was just like, I can't believe I'm at Gruen Guitars. Where I'm at now, yeah, definitely. It does occur to me. The thing with Dan all happened so organically, though. It never.
How did that happen?
Well, so I wound up figuring out originally the heat stick was me taking off necks with cartridge heaters, and
which is actually now a tool you can buy on StuMac that you developed. Dry heat removal of guitar necks.
Yeah, their heat stick is a little bit different, and probably not how I would have gone about it, but it works.
Oh, interesting.
It works fine. But originally, so a cartridge heater is actually something that has nichrome wire running the entire loop, and so the heat stick is the soldering pencil is up here radiating heat down the thing, whereas the cartridge heater actually delivers uniform heat down the entire length of it. It's a little bit different, but anyway, so I figured that out. It was crazy. I was like, I couldn't believe nobody else had, and maybe somebody else had, but I couldn't believe nobody else had come up with this before, because the first neck that I pulled was a Gibson a Guild wide heel neck, which could take they can take hours. And this guitar was apart. The first one I tried was apart in like 30 minutes in just such a relaxed manner that I was laughing and shaking my head. But anyway, so local to me was a guy named Alex, who had worked, Alex Glasser of Iron Horse Instruments, who had worked out he'd worked in the Bay Area at Santa Cruz and then ultimately at Griffin. And he was really tight with Frank Ford. And so I showed Alex, and then Alex called Frank, and then Frank called Dan. And then me and Frank and Dan were talking about it. And Frank actually came up with what I still use to this day, which is the resistance heaters, which are 16th inch. So 16th inch stainless steel tube with nichrome wire and insulation going through it. And it's all driven by a DC power supply. But
your original concept, but improved by collaboration.
Yeah, by getting it smaller, basically. But also the nichrome wire thing is like crazy useful. Like I pulled a Gretsch neck by basically wadding up a bunch of nichrome wire and sticking it in the screw hole on a Chet Atkins, and just heating up the entire neck block with a football of nichrome wire in there. Wow. But it's all the purpose-built things like the foam cutters and the heat stick, they're all really neat, but like having the ability to heat up nichrome wire in infinitely configurable modes of heat delivery is what's really interesting. So
that is impressive.
So Dan and I wound up connecting, and he came out to New York in 2015 or 16 or something like that. And we hit it off, and it was
he associated with StuMac in 2015 or
yeah.
Okay.
He was still working for him. I think he only retired a couple of years ago, but so we hit it off, and I had kind of made mostly my Instagram took off because I was doing a lot of finish repair that was that's one of the things that there aren't a lot of books. There's no resources for finish repair as applied to guitar repair that are what I would consider to be helpful. There are a few there.
That's where a lot of, and me too, I don't think I'll ever be at that level, but finishing is always the stopping point with me with clients. It's like, I can do this, but I'm not going to be able to finish it. You're going to have to find someone to do that for you. It seems like the furthest stretch that we can do as repair guys. You're right. The resources just aren't there. Yeah.
The resources aren't there. And, frankly, the way that I go about a lot of things, the resources aren't there for customers to actually pay for like crazy finish, but it's changing. Like some of the older guitars and stuff, they're getting valuable to the point where those kind of regrettable things are ready for redos and stuff. But guitar repair finish, I mean, we've had Iris Carr on a lot and looked at her touch up on violins, and it's crazy bonkers stuff. But one of the things that violin makers have going for them is there's, the finishes are very thin, like it's a lot of the stuff is like you're already replicating some other, very, very, limited amount of items used in the finishing. Like you've got your dyes and your pigments and blah blah blah. Guitar finishing is like there's so many different finishes. I mean, pore filled finish. There's, translucent finish. There's finish that's, you've put dye on bare wood and then shot toner over the top of that. You've got, gold tops and sparkle finishes and, all of this stuff, like
graphics.
Great, crazy amounts of different kind of finish scenarios that, like ostensibly as a, guitar repair practitioner, it's right there. I repair guitars. I repair guitar finishes. And now there's this mountain of different types of finishing schedules that you're now saying, a thing or two about, where, there isn't a lot of information on that stuff.
I've been waiting for StuMac to start selling hazmat suits, spray booths, portable spray booths and stuff. It's the next inevitable step. I mean, they've got some pretty good finishing products there. I mean, they're,
yeah, they do.
They're diving in. They're dabbling their toe in there because they know it's an important aspect.
Yeah, it is. And, like the finish repair thing too is, so Dan and I, after we met, like he was looking at some of the finish repair stuff I did, and he decided to do, he'd just gotten his shop remodeled, and he was going to do some classes in his shop. And so he invited me to come out and do some finish repair classes. And those wound up being well received. And then when the pandemic hit, we couldn't do the in-person classes anymore. And the Patreon had started, and I was like, maybe I can redo these classes, except do them on the Patreon, and that became Ding Kings, which is where we were doing all of our finish repair stuff. That's now changed into just the Looth Pro stuff, and we haven't done any finish repair stuff for a while because we kind of branched out into fretwork and stuff. But
when you were at Lark Street, when did that start segueing into, I'm going to go on and do my own thing?
Just the pandemic, like the pandemic.
That was it. That was the turning point. You couldn't go back to work anymore.
I started taking projects home. In a lot of ways, we were, I love Buzzy to pieces, and he's a great guy, but we were both, I think, ready to part ways at that time anyway. And it was a great opportunity to do it for both of us. So it's, it worked out well. I really had no idea that there's been a couple points, where the Patreon, we kind of go up, and like largely membership has been a linear thing, but we've had a couple moments where things have flattened off, and I was like, is it time to start repairing guitars again, or is this like the inevitable, stopping point? But it always winds up picking back up again. But yeah,
so right now you're balancing repair work in do you have a studio? Do you do it in home? I take on one project at a time.
Okay. And it's only projects that I think will be interesting to develop content for the Looth Group. And basically, like, I spend, the amount of time I spend on the Looth Group right now is actually pretty ridiculous. I'm mostly working on the website.
Cool.
We're doing the Looth Map 2.0 now, where we're going to actually be able to filter people's workshops by what kind of work they do, what kind of instruments they work on, what kind of warranty status that they have, and we'll start having people signing up for that and putting and everybody's going to have they're going to put their information, and they'll have their own little kind of like MySpace page where it'll have all their details lined out. And then
great idea.
Probably let the general guitar consumer public know about it some way. The amount of time I've dumped into that is just it's absolutely absurd.
And I'm not dissing you, Ian, but I logged into, I think it was a Looth Along, and you happened to be there at that moment, but I think you're in your backyard eating carrots for lunch. And I was like, is that how it looked like you're eating carrots. I don't know but you're having your lunch basically in what looked like a beautiful backyard of green grass and trees. Yeah. And I was like, this guy, he devotes every waking minute to this Looth Group. I could tell that you really cared. It's like you've created this thing, this entity. It's organic, like you said. It's growing in different ways. It's awesome to see, but you're always seemingly there. Do you have anyone that's lending support to you besides
Oh yeah.
content? Like, hey, can you log in and do this, mediate this event for me, or
Oh yeah.
anything like that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've got originally I've had two original henchmen. The Ian Hates Guitars was started with Sam Stewart, who is Young Esteban on Instagram, as my media henchman, and then that I wound up getting him on at Dave's Guitars, and he didn't have time after that. So then Ted Bergstrand helped me out, and then something happened where when we were doing Ding Kings, I was basically producing one demo a month, and trying to get repair work done at the same time. And I was getting like that, I was starting to get that end of the month like dread, like I haven't experienced since high school, when there was like
deadline.
something big was due, and I hadn't thought about it at all, and it was coming up. So so I was getting pretty tired of feeling that way, and I was like, all right, I need and it's just so obvious that nothing interesting has been built with just one person, doing stuff. So I started the contributing partner program, and decided to actually start divvying up the Patreon funds to bring people in to help with administration, with producing content, with in a lot of ways guidance. I tend to be a little manic, and I get a lot of crazy ideas, and having other people around to go, that's a good idea, that's a crazy idea, like that's super helpful too.
Awesome.
And so now the contributing partners are Doug Proper, who's doing all of our business as it relates to crunching numbers and all that kind of stuff, and then applying it to guitar repair. Michael Batchkin is doing guitar construction content. James Rodman is doing the content for all machine shop and CNC and 3D printing and stuff. He's running 3D Club. Grace Dameron is doing all of our kind of booking and calendar stuff, and liaisoning between guests, and making sure that nobody, when I was doing it, like stuff like double booking people was not uncommon. Putting things in the calendar wrong, and then me not even showing up to the event happened a couple times. Very cool. She's doing all the artwork for all the thumbnails and stuff too.
Oh, nice.
And so let's see, who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. Let me pull it up. So we did
great team.
Michael Bashkin, Doug Proper, Grace, James Rodman, Jerry Hayes. How could I forget Jerry Hayes? Jerry Hayes wrote the book Complete Guitar Wiring, and is producing content.
Is he? Hayes Guitars. He's Hayes.
Yeah, Hayes Guitars.
I go to his website all the time. The dude has answers for practically everything.
Yeah, Jerry's awesome.
When I go on Google and say, how do I do this? And Hayes Guitars always comes to the top of the list. Here's how you pull it off. And he clearly defined. Oh, I love his website.
Yeah. So anyway, he's helping me with the Looth Group website, and
nice.
He's awesome. I can't say enough good things about Jerry.
Awesome.
But the whole crew is really it's really flabbergasting, and the energy's super positive. Like we have meetings, and we all talk, and nobody seems to get too upset. So did I say Dan Earlywine? Dan Earlywine's a contributing partner too.
You did not. Oh, gee, that guy. Yeah.
It's crazy to try to list all of them, but yeah, Dan is like, he's a dynamo of that man was making content before they called it content, like they called it videos and VHS and whatnot.
I was trying to iterate the importance of Dan Earlywine in our industry to my wife, and I said, I look at him as the Obi-Wan Kenobi of what we do. And that's my personal. And I've really put him up on a pedestal that's just so freaking high.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is. He's definitely the go-to guy for a lot of stuff.
Well, when I walked into the guy's shop that I did my apprenticeship with, and my first reaction was like, "This is a thing," and he was like, "Yeah, it's a thing." Like that's the thing, is nobody knew it was a thing, and Dan Earlywine was out there saying, "Yeah, it's a thing," and like if
Sure
not
enough.
him, like I mean. I'm sure there are model railroad mechanics or something like that, people that work on model railroad trains.
Right.
But like they also, when they go to make a Google Place page or Google listing or whatever, there's no autofill for what they do, like
that's a good point.
So like Dan has been out there championing this as a respectable trade, back when it was still just like a hippie screw around thing, where you would, like wear some bell bottoms and smoke some weed and, work on some guitars or whatever. So
yeah. And it's cool because, StuMac's backstory is very much like that, and not, we should also mention Dan's brother is also in the industry big time, down in Texas, I believe. It runs in his family for sure. So the Looth Group, you've got, there's a section on there, and this circles back to the 3D printing discussion. It's the what's the 3D section called? The
Looth prints.
Looth prints, yeah. And your magnetic board, the Gridfinity, that is the coolest freaking thing with the headrest in there. Is the headrest removable? I don't know. Is it?
It isn't. No, it might be interesting to make one that's removable. I was just, that neck rest was a design that I purloined from my days at Breedlove. A guy named John Hedgecoth. Maybe I'm getting that name mixed up. Anyway, fellow that worked at Breedlove we put preamps in the side of guitars back then, and you needed a way to hold the guitar sideways. And that neck rest was basically, that V neck rest was to hold the guitar sideways while you put the peg head in it. And I was like, I was messing around with it one day, and I realized that the neck actually worked really good on it. Just putting the barrel of the neck, I was like, this is a great all-around neck rest. And so I started using it as my daily driver for neck rests, and I've pretty much used that V style neck rest ever since. And so designing it to be 3D printed I thought was an interesting project. And there'll probably be more iterations of it. But the Gridfinity thing, since getting into, I'll make sure to link, like the neck rest has the link to the guy that's actually responsible for making Gridfinity. But yeah, this neat kid that does a bunch of 3D printing stuff. His name is Zach, has a YouTube channel. Yeah, I was just like, what if we put that on there? And then the first thing I modeled up was the screwdriver holder for the StuMac screwdriver kit, which is a fantastic kit, and it's great for transporting.
But man, pulling those bits out with your fingers, it's like I have to pull bits out on next to the bit that I want to get just so I can reach it.
Yeah,
it's the greatest tool, but it's so difficult to work with. But that tray solves that problem.
Yeah, it really works well, and it's exactly the type of thing that you would want on your neck rest too. Like it comes up all the time to give like the tuners a little tighten or something. You just want that screwdriver there. And even just the act of opening the box, I found to be dissuading from
you have to push
it's not great. So anyway, but we're gonna wind up having a contest for people to design things to put on the different widgets to put on there.
Oh, very cool. On the Gridfinity.
Yeah, and we're partnering with the fellows over at String Pluckery.
And for anyone listening, and I'll post pictures of the Gridfinity on the YouTube video of this interview, but it's a waffle-based system. It looks basically like a waffle iron, with individual squares, probably half inch by half inch, quarter by quarter. And then there's a little round magnet underneath each one of those squares. And the applications are magnet based. So you create little, what would you call them? Units, I guess.
Yeah, widgets or something.
Widgets. That's a great term. And you throw that widget in there, and it magnetizes into the waffle base and keeps all your parts next to the neck rest, the V rest that you're talking about, right in the dead center.
Yep.
And it's the coolest, handiest idea.
Yep. And you can, like that pattern, there are generators online where you can generate that pattern, and the thing about the neck rest is we chose half size. So 21 millimeters is the grid size. And then you can just print out, if you wanted a grid to put other things on your bench, and you can just, there's a parametric generator where you can say, I want it to be 3 by 12 or 2 by 15 or whatever, and it'll just spit out. It'll spit out the pattern for you. That is actually with the neck rest has the link to that generator. So, and you can make
very cool
parts trays and stuff with that. So
I like the contest idea. When are you thinking about launching that?
We're going to announce it, I think, next 3D Club, and then we're
very cool.
going to announce it on the Instagram here pretty soon.
Very cool. Very cool. I can already in my mind imagine 3 different things, widgets that I would create.
Yeah,
it's a very open source kind of a thing.
When I get the time, I'm going to model up something to hold my Frank crank. So
what's a Frank crank?
It's just a string winder that Frank Ford made before he passed.
Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah, I think Griffin is actually making them posthumously for Frank. But they're funny. He sent me one, and I was like, it's a string winder,
there are a million out there.
Like, I used to have this derogatory thing. I used to call people handle painters because, there's just this kid. Oh, Guitar Factory is a busy place, and there's not a lot of time for screwing around. But occasionally you have to make things to do jobs or whatever. And somebody needed a new fret file or something, and this kid that was working there, he made this, this handle for his fret file that was out of flame maple, and then he stained a sunburst on it and then French polished.
Wow.
I was like, and the whole exercise was just while there was a mountain of things to be done, he took the time to paint this handle. So anyways, it was a derogatory term for that. And so in general, I'm always suspicious of things that are, have the idea of getting too fancy for things. But anyway, so Frank's crank is the one that I have is just it's very plain, so that speaks to me. He did make some fancier ones later, but anyway, it's got all these interesting angles and stuff to it, though. It's clearly conceived by somebody who was a machinist and had been around, machinist ideas for knobs and ergonomics for cranking things. And so I am not exaggerating when I said the first time I used it, I did a involuntary ooh, because it just you're so used to the Dunlop things. They make a racket, they're loose on there. This thing fit right on the thing, and then when you turned it, everything had this little angle to where it was very comfortable to use, very ergonomic.
Okay.
So anyway,
that's your go-to string winder now from now on.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna make a thing for the neck rest to hold, to holster that string winder.
It reminds me of when we have lunch during we'll sit and watch stupid sitcoms, and we got into King of Queens lately, and Arthur, played by Jerry Stiller, he lives in their basement, and one day he's hanging out with this guy who's working on something, and he's like, hand me a screwdriver. No, that's a flathead. Hand me the Phillips. And he went, okay. And then he goes, Phillips. Some guy named Philip decided to design, and he went, I'm going to design my own. So he ends up taking the letter A from a typewriter and putting it on the end and creating the Arthur driver. And he says, so basically, I need an A-hole to stick this into. That was hilarious. So he's pulling apart of these old, and it says 6 months later, and he's like, number 3, and he's putting the typewriter A on it and laying it on this blanket. It was so funny. When you were at Lark Street and you started breaking away to do your own thing, when did you get to the point where you started developing ideas like the heat stick and reaching out to, well, you said StewMac's version's a little different, but did they know about you, and did it just happen to coincidentally come about while you, I mean,
the heat stick and the cartridge heater happened at Lark Street. And okay. Just in general, guitar repair people tend to be, there's a lot of freedom in guitar repair. There's a lot of different kinds of guitars, and there's a lot of different kinds of problems to solve. Like a person goes to a violin restoration school and they learn how to do a soundpost patch. Chances are pretty good that technique that they're going to learn for a soundpost patch is going to be the technique that they use for the remainder of their career, and it's probably not going to come up very often to stray outside of the parameters of what they learned. Guitar repair, it's all over the place. Oh, you learned how to do a neck reset on a Martin. Okay, now are you ready to do a neck reset on a Gretsch? Are you ready to do a neck reset on a Gibson? Are you ready to do a neck reset on any number of crazy instruments? So there's constantly need for thinking about how to do things that and for a lot of my career had never been done before. Just out of necessity, this thing's going to get thrown in the garbage if we don't figure out a way to do this, to fix this, and to fix it cost effectively. And so as a result, that's just kind of it. People that are interested in coming up with things and sometimes harebrained schemes, they gravitate towards this job. It's if you look at like for instance, Dan Earlywine is like, he's like, I firmly believe it's like a generational thing too, because the stuff that I've come up with is inventive or whatever, but there was a time and a place where in a generation where things were not disposable, and if your thing broke, if you wanted to still function, you didn't replace it, you fixed it. And so it seems like the lineage of some of this some of that knowledge has been broken in the age of disposability, but I would imagine a lot of the concepts that Dan employs in guitar repair are probably concepts more broadly that probably his grandfather passed down to him while they were working on a fence tie or whatever. I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. I know Dan pretty well, but I don't know if he's out mending fences with his grandpa. But let's just say that he was. But
okay. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff is, and you see it like in StewMac videos, like he goes about things in just those I would not have thought of it that ways, and they're usually always brilliant. But it's they say that like the definition of genius, not to to use that word so grandiosely, but like one of the definitions that I've heard is just that ability to, like, without actually doing it in your mind, iterate all of the possible ways that you could possibly do something, and then selecting from the one that you think makes the most sense. And so those things, it's really easy to like, I would imagine that if you're working in the violin trade and you've got this incredible toolbox of tried and true methods, like when you are presented with these opportunities where you need to stray outside of it a little bit, it could probably be a little challenging. I feel like in guitar repair, some people go into guitar repair, really wanting to feel like that there's this body of knowledge that if they just apply, solution A to problem A, everything's gonna work out. But there really is, for most jobs I've encountered, there needs to be, that flexibility to think about it a little more deeply than that, because, the guitar is a complicated.
It is, and that's true, Ian, because there have been tons. I mean, I've only been doing this for a year on my own guitars for decades, haphazardly, but now with the knowledge base for about a year. But you're right. Every scenario, there's like I need to step back. I need to look there. Right away, your brain's like, oh, well, that will be this solution, A to A, like you just said. But really, if you step back, it's like, yes, but there's this little anomaly with this problem that A really won't work. Let's do an A 2.0, or, it's a constant rethinking and reconfiguring as you go.
Yeah.
It makes it interesting for sure. It's never a dry process.
It is. As I get older, and the, neuroplasticity is starting to fade. It's annoying.
Right.
It used to be really exciting. It's annoying now. I just want to, can I just spend, 8 hours doing something that's going to, cut me a check of this size? But I don't want to reinvent the wheel on every project.
Right.
But, and still, still I find, and some of that's being self-employed doing repair, I didn't mind experimenting on somebody else's dime. Coming up with creative solutions on my own dime is, it feels very risky, and I'm not a gambler.
There is that hefty balance between practicality and getting the pay to how much do I really want to, because once that customer sits down with the guitar, and I have every customer plug into the amp or whatever and play the guitar before they leave, and we discuss what I've done, but they don't know what went behind it. I'm charging them this much, but really A 2.0 happened, or, those variations of that one fix, and they don't know what went behind that pricing. And I really feel sometimes that I'm underpricing my repair work. And in fact, I think it's kind of a given that you're going to charge the customer one flat rate, but they had several variations of that fix that, they don't understand what took place to get it sitting with the final instrument and playing it and leaving.
No, I
guitar.
I think that's right. I think, in general too, one of the things that I hope to accomplish with the Looth Group is to pull everybody up by their bootstraps and get them charging a fair wage. In addition to this is a common refrain over and over again throughout everything that we talk about. When Doug does Luthing for Dollars, he's got
very valuable shows.
He's got 70 people there wondering how do I charge more? And his answer is always the same: charge more.
Right. That's
But the thing is that's the next component, is that Dan spent a long time saying this is a thing, and now we need to collectively say this is so much of a thing that we're at least worth what a plumber gets, because honestly, especially in the guitars that as we get into the higher end and we start dealing with vintage guitars, you're talking about guitars that are $50,000-$60,000, and the risk is the risk is crazy, and then the reward is not as crazy, and it's something's got to give. And part of the problem is that I've seen the way that guitar consumers treat guitars change in my career. At the beginning of my career, guitars were a sailboat. It's just I want this thing to work. I want to go out sailing on a Sunday afternoon, and I know I'm going to have to, eat a bunch of shit financially to make that happen. And then somewhere in the mid 2000s, people got it in their brains that guitars were an investment, and it's just like now me as a guitar repair guy, I'm part of some guy's golf course story where he's telling his buddy what a financial genius he is. That career path is not something I'm interested in being a part of. So, so collectively as practitioners of this trade, if we were to reel that back in and get people to understand that they're the proud owners of a fancy sailboat that they're going to have to pay to maintain, I think we could do better as a trade.
And it's tough too, because so many repair specialists that I've talked with, inevitably it comes up that we're doing a service for musicians. We're, and you understand, the repair guys mostly always are musicians, and they've been in this position before, where I need this done to my guitar. It's my only guitar. It may be a crappy Squire or whatever it is, but it's my instrument. So there's that kind of you're doing a service to the musicians. You understand that their budget, they're budgeting, but there is that element that you have to bring to, like, I'm doing a service to these just to give them the instrument because I've been there and I know how hard it is. There's that balancing act that you need to how much can they afford? It adds a tough element sometimes.
It does, and it's something like everybody struggles with balancing.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is we get guys all the time. They're like, how much should I charge for this? Like there's somebody else in my community that's doing setups for $70, and can I charge $100 for it when there's somebody doing it for 70? And I'm like, the thing that I just keep saying over and over again is if you're in competition with somebody that's going to be out of business because their prices are too low and they're not covering costs, then you're going to be out of business too. You guys are just going to go down you're going to have a race to the bottom economically with each other. And the same goes for, all of the, one of the things I tell people all the time too is, you want to engage in charity work, you want to engage in experimentation work, you want to push your boundaries, you want to now I'm going to get into Martin neck resets, or I'm going to get into, maybe refrets is your next step. Figure out what you can afford to do financially and take on those projects in a limited number. Like if you want to do charity work but you only have time to do one project a month for charity work, realistically, only take in one charity project at a time. You want to do an experimentation project, take in one at a time, and then make sure that the rest of your time is spent doing the projects that are financially prudent. That seems to be the recipe. Like a lot of people, like myself included, when I look at, there's a lot of reasons why I went out of business back in 2010. Part of it was my drunken whiskey skipping exposition. But part of it too was I was just, I had no idea about any of this stuff. And, I was like in a perpetual state of Groundhog's Day with customers, where every customer was like a new interaction. And I was only thinking about the customer as I was interacting with them. I wasn't thinking about my pile of guitars. I wasn't thinking about the new bill for the internet that I have, because I need the internet at the shop or any of that stuff. It was all like, what is in front of me right now?
Okay.
And that, that in addition to just, nobody wants to say no to somebody. Nobody wants to go no, but that's the business, is being realistic about when you have to say, I can't take in, I've got I've already got my charity project for the month, or I've already got my 2 charity
Right.
projects for the month. I can't take in another
My
charity.
good
project.
deed. My good deed. Yeah.
Or I've already got, my experimentation project's been sitting there for 3 months, and I haven't had time to get to it because I've been needing to hustle on all the paying work. I can't take in another. Boy, wouldn't that be interesting and wouldn't that make a lot of great pictures for Instagram? If that and just getting over the idea that if a repair project walks out of your door, like this idea that you have to hoard all of the repair projects because there's some kind of like finite supply of them. That's another thing, like stacking up cases in your shop, like it really, like, I don't know what the ideal buffer is. Yeah, I don't know what the ideal buffer is, but it's not a lot of cases. That it becomes too much to think about. If you're like Doug and you've got like a really good record keeping system, but when I get a lot of cases, it's crazy. I've had so many cases before that I was working on something and somebody called me, said, "Where's my guitar?" And I had honestly forgotten that guitar was even in the shop. And
Yikes.
I would have to like scramble to go, like, well, so,
my aunt died and my dog ate the homework and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's
Ian, if you had to tap your brain on your long history of repairs, what would you say is the oddest repair that you've ever had to do? Is there one that just stands out like, oh, I'll never see this again? I apologize because your history is so vast that.
I mean, in terms of rare guitars, I mean, I worked on a bunch of Gruns that were pretty crazy. Most of them were just guitars, though. I mean, there was nothing like double neck harp guitars or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, for instance, a guy accidentally misfired his rifle and blew a hole through. Weird stuff like that. Like, wow, really? I mean,
no. Those ones are usually like almost all of those are like what I used to refer to as old lady related incidents. Like they say they got shot with something, but it was clearly like your significant other was tired of hearing guitar and she just smashed it. I can tell. You can tell.
So you've probably resurrected some pretty dead guitars in the past, right? Ones that just seemed completely due to the garbage bin, but it was like the customer really wanted it,
Well, I mean, so not as many as you might think. So I've mostly worked for other shops for my career, and so almost all of those were shops run by people that were trying to buy low and sell high, and take some of the buy low and out of the repair side of things.
Okay.
So things that were completely smashed up, like they're almost never worth resurrecting, and I don't find them to be particularly satisfying. I mostly have worked on acoustic instruments.
Okay.
And
I was going to ask. It seemed on your Instagram like I didn't see many electrics. It was a lot of acoustic repairs.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of like touch up and headstock repairs and stuff on electrics, but there's not usually a lot of structural stuff interesting to do on electrics. But the acoustics, like, you can cobble them back together for sure, but there's such an unrealistic proposition to begin with that once they become compromised, they just become really unreliable for how the neck angle is going to wind up maintaining and stuff like that. So it doesn't take much on those to really produce a result that's hard to guarantee. And going back to that gambling thing, like neck reset right now in most shops is like maybe top $600-700, and it's like now that we're doing fingerboard extension shims and we're doing, this, that, and the other thing to really tightening it up. I mean, a neck reset is probably, for most people, 2 full days of work for $600 or $700. And the idea that it goes out into the world and then comes back 2 years later and something's changed and it needs another neck reset, and now you've got to the guy's wondering why he has to pay for a neck reset twice and you're doing that dance. That becomes impossible economically. And so any of those things that are making a new back for something, or putting gluing back together shattered sides, or any of that stuff, where it's a little side crack here and there is one thing, but shattered sides up around the deck block and stuff like that, it makes it such an unreliable proposition that it's hard to take those projects on with the liability associated with them.
So you've turned down customers before and look, I have to give you the real deal, and it's your guitar's shot. There's nothing I can do.
Well,
or any experienced luthier can do.
Sometimes, I mean, it's the type of thing where I'll front load something with expectation reduction, where I go, I can do all this work, but I'm not gonna guarantee it. I'm not gonna warranty it, and I'm gonna make sure that the gambling is done by you. And a lot of times that's all somebody needs to hear to go, oh, okay, well then,
right? Because
they're really used to guitar repair customers have been dealing with guitar repair practitioners for long enough to know that we have, as a trade, we've had crazy expectations put on us. And I think a lot of time, looking back on it, it's probably because of Martin Guitar's ridiculous lifetime warranty with their guitars. There's this idea that you're supposed to take this physics problem and make something reliable out of it. And if anything, if you haven't predicted every single possible variable on how, a top could pull or a neck block could pull or whatever, that's on you for some reason. So
yeah.
I don't see how that's, I don't see how that's a productive way to spend your time. Some people do it though. Some people like the risk. I've got friends that like that. It's exciting to them, and they've cornered a lot of the variables and are able to produce consistent results on stuff. I still, those times where you do everything right and it still turns out wrong. I'm not interested in
sure,
eating that time.
Going into that jungle. Yeah. So, any future plans for the Looth Group besides, I like the directory idea. That's very cool. The contest on the Gridfinity. That's awesome. Any, who's in the guild? You have the guild, and you mentioned the people that are helping keep Looth Group alive, but who's in the guild?
I'm not sure guild. What?
Well, there's the I think it's called the Guild of Elders or something.
Oh, Council of Elders. That's just the
Council of. Yeah. I'm sorry, the Council of Elders. I'm sorry. Who's in the Council of Elders?
That's the partners. Any of the partners are there, and basically it's a way. We have the forum now, and we have a vehicle for answering questions. But we have some of the Council of Elders who are so elder that they have a hard time with internet stuff, and so this is the one place where I can get them together to answer questions for the people, because that's in a lot of ways, what we're offering with membership is access to people. You get access to the other members, and there's a lot of good information flowing back and forth between members and stuff. But there's stuff going on, with the people with gray nose hairs that you're not going to get, peer-to-peer.
Immediate, yeah.
So that's what Council Council of Elders is once a month we convene the council, and then we just answer questions. And so there's a portal on there too. And one of the things that I felt was important was we have a way to ask questions anonymously. When I first started the Ding Kings and when I first started doing finish repair on stuff, it was funny because I would get, because there isn't a lot of information on this stuff. We were searching quite high for stuff, and I would get at least probably 2 or 3 times a month people that signed up. And back then I would do you got 1 email question per month, and they would sign up. 2 seconds later I would get an email of something that they had clearly they'd had a whoopsie daisy, and they were like, how do I fix this? And a lot of times I was like, looking at stuff that gave me anxiety because I knew how hard it was to fix. And these people were clearly like trying to avoid a difficult conversation with a customer.
Yeah.
And they were like, I was a Hail Mary attempt, and I was like, you need to call the customer. I can help you make this look better. By the way, how long have you been doing this? Like, is this going to be your first time holding an airbrush? Because there's some skill involved. So anyway, but we still have those questions where people are, they're still reticent from a reputational standpoint to ask them. So we have the ability to ask those questions anonymously now on the feed section of our website. There's a button there that says Council of Elders questionnaire. And if you fill that out, the question with pictures and stuff, it can be handled anonymously. That way somebody that maybe feels shy about asking a question doesn't need to feel that way. So
the council convenes every month, you said, like once a month, you said?
Yep,
so if you ask a question, just know that if you ask on the 1st, you may not get an answer for that question until the 30th.
And there's some flexibility to that. The other thing that I want to do is, Doug gets 1 million DMs, Dan gets 1 million emails. I get, because of the way I run my Instagram, I get fewer because I think people feel like if they DM me, they're going to get a real cryptic reply, which they're not wrong about. But so the
we'll talk about dogs later.
Yeah,
Coco,
I got a dog. I got.
Yeah, you've got Kevin. You've got Kevin.
So
anyway, sorry, where were we?
Oh, so anyway, Council of Elders. There's an old Council of Elders where I'm wearing a toga, and I've put on a backdrop of like the Parthenon, and it's really funny. It's actually my curtain, but yeah. So everybody getting a lot of questions. One of the things is there's a lot of questions that we wind up having to do a lot of talking. A picture says 1,000 words. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and talking is easier than typing. And so Dan and Doug and me constantly answering emails and DMs and Instagram, these things in video format, where we can actually look at pictures, where we can get more than one person looking at it at the same time and spark a conversation about it. Those conversations begin being very interesting because you're talking about conversations between people that have been in the business for a long time and seen a lot of things, and can usually something more interesting comes out of a conversation between 3 or 4 repair people than one person answering a question.
Absolutely.
And then the nice thing about it is it's not squirreled away in an email. Now it's on the website. Now it's got tags associated with it. So the next time somebody's like, hey, how do I do this? And they type in, how do I do this into the search bar? The video is going to come up with the taxonomy nailed on it. And that's really what, we're trying to do with the website is good taxonomy. So it's searchable, and then just curate good answers and make sure that, we're not getting erroneous information squirreled away on there that's going to, do harm, because, Google doesn't care. You type in, how do I do my front ends on Google? And it's just, the way that it tells you what is a good answer is not, not significant. So
Yeah, like I did a search the other day on Google for nibs, how to handle re-nibbing or whatever, and it sent me to a chocolatier talking about chocolate nibs. It's like,
yeah,
no, AI can only go so far, or it
yeah,
goes too far, actually.
it'll get better, but still, it doesn't know. It doesn't
Mhm.
know our job. It doesn't care about our job. Our job isn't economically significant enough to care about.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's
Well,
fine.
I'm telling you, man, the Looth Group is invaluable. And I'm telling you, anyone listening now, if you're anywhere at any level of this repair industry and you haven't heard of the Looth Group, then you're obviously not online. It's just it's a must have for sure. And I found my subscription has paid for itself tenfold
Great.
already. Yeah, it's awesome. Ian, thank you. You're doing saintly work there for sure. Very robust and diverse site.
I appreciate that. It always
Yeah.
that's the when I try to distill our mission statement down, I'm like, I was that kid that was trying to fix guitars for a living, and now I want to be the guy that we give information where that kid that's like working in the back of somebody else's music shop, we're going to give him information that's going to get him extra $100 in his back pocket every month, and that's the mission statement. So when I hear that things like my subscription is paid for itself, that makes me feel really good. So
Absolutely. And of course when you're a learner, the next inevitable step is to become the teacher. And it's definitely playing out like that. Definitely. Uh, I always ask everyone, Ian, and I've already taken up much of your time. Uh, the same question at the end of every interview,
Mhm.
and it's if you had three guitar tunes to put on a desert island mixtape, what three tunes would take the highest priority on that mixtape if you had to choose?
Let's see. So the first one that I thought of was the live version of Amanda by Waylon Jennings. The Ralph Mooney steel solo on that is like it's crazy. It's absolutely
Oh, I have to
crazy.
look that one up. Have you ever, as a player, you are a player still to this day?
A little bit. I mostly play anything with a square neck. I don't wrangle a guitar much anymore. And since
Oh,
it's
interesting. What do you mean with the square neck?
just like like lap slide stuff.
No doubt. So Amanda, that's why Amanda is
Oh
on
yeah,
that
yeah.
list here.
Like any of the guitar stuff that lights me up is that. The other one that has really been resurfacing is Bonnie Raitt did a version of Bob Dylan's "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue" for a movie back in the 2000s, and her slide guitar on that is like it's
Mm.
like it's
Bonnie
crazy.
Raitt.
Yeah.
Was there a style of guitar that you gravitated towards? Were you a Strat guy? Were you a Tele, Les Paul?
Oh, when I was young and playing electric guitar, I had a Strat, but it didn't really mean. I mean, I wasn't a guitar. I've never really been a guitar connoisseur.
Gotcha.
I have a couple nice acoustics now. I have Southern Jumbo from the 50s. That's really nice that I picked up while I was at Gruen's. And then a 57 D18 that I'm putting back together. But
Oh, wow, nice.
but both of those are probably going to get sold here. A while back when I was working at Breedlove, Preston Thompson of Thompson Guitars and Jason Bowerman and I started building traditional guitars at Breedlove, and we called them the Revival Series. And
Oh, nice.
the type number 1 came into Lark Street, and I bought it a couple of years ago, and it's got my dumb penmanship on the label and everything, all the way from
No way.
The thing is whether or not it's prototype number 1, I don't know, because I put prototype number 1 on 10 guitars because the first 10 guitars were so bad that I was like, these people need to feel special. So I put prototype number 1 on a bunch of them.
Man,
And
I bet
so
the hair just raised up on your arms when you saw that guitar. Like, wow, talk about full circle,
It really came back. Yeah, I think we built those in 2004, and I think I bought it in like 2020 or 2021, something like
Wow.
that. So
Wow.
it had been a while since I'd seen it. So it was, but it's actually a really nice sounding guitar. And, I don't require, I'm not, in addition to not being a handle painter, I'm not a cork sniffer. Like if, almost every dreadnought guitar, whether it's a Larve or whatever, I mean, if you, hit it with a flat pick, it's going to make more noise than my wife wants to hear. So, like everything else is esoteric beyond my interest level. So
are you a finger style player or a flat
pick? I play
pick
a little
player?
bit of finger style.
Okay.
I play a little bit of flat pick. Mostly
okay.
just for my own, just something to do. I would never, if I was at a party and there was a guitar there, I would never like pick it up and start playing Oasis or something like that. Like it just would not. I wouldn't do that to anybody. Maybe if I started drinking again, I might do that.
That's right.
But
so Bonnie Raitt, Waylon Jennings, and then number 3.
Well, speaking of Bonnie Raitt, Buzzy's got this brother named Duke Levine who is like, he's absolutely crazy, and like he's completely capable of like melting faces. Like he can produce a tremendous amount of notes pretty quickly, but he's also like just really, really, really tasteful. And so he actually started playing guitar with Bonnie Raitt a while back. But anything like any of his solo albums, like he's just like top of the pile. Like
cool.
When he would come in to Lark Street, it was like I was like, we get so many guitar players in there, but we don't get very many musicians in there. And that's the thing that's like really, really lost is like, what are you trying to do with this thing? Like, is this a vehicle for self-exploration? Well, that's fine. That's what I do. And I do it privately. I don't go into a guitar store and inflict my silly guitar notions on other people at maximum volume.
Right.
So, but Duke is just an absolute musician. And whenever he was in the store playing, he was like, time to stare out the window and think about ex-girlfriends or something. It's just like,
nice.
I'm being taken to a different place,
Awesome. And that is a musician as opposed to a player. You're right.
Yeah. It's so much guitar playing is, it's like it's a skateboard trick. It's
yeah.
You trained your body to do something. That's cool. I mean, it's neat. It's a neat trick. But the real thing is like, how do you take it to that next level and make people stare out the window and think about ex-girlfriends? That's right. That's the intangible part of it. Like the trick part of it, like that's easy. That's repetition, muscle memory and all that. The intangible part is what everybody's interested in.
Absolutely. And I don't know how many times in my YouTube search history I see videos on how to break out of the pentatonic box, because that's where I'm at. Noodle. That's not there's that next level that you're talking about.
It's hard. It's something once again, it's not anything I've ever achieved. Nobody whenever they've been in earshot of me playing guitar and I quit, were they ever like, could you do that some more? Like, I don't know what it was you were doing, but could you please? I wasn't done listening to whatever it was you were doing.
That's right.
Nobody's ever confused me with that.
So that's your Desert Island mixtape. Thank you. I appreciate that. So you choose a guitarist and 2 tunes from Bonnie Raitt and
by the way, those are my guitar tunes. I mostly listen to hip hop, so it's
I know and that's what I love about you, Ian. You do not listen to mostly hip hop. You're so tongue in cheek sometimes. It's hilarious. I've seen you moderate these events on the Looth Group, and I'm always waiting for you to chime in with some remark or off the cuff remark, and it cracks me up. It's awesome. It keeps it interesting for sure.
Try to keep it light.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, thank you so much for your time, man. I greatly appreciate it. It's been awesome, and I'll reach out on the Looth Group every so often and say hi. I'm trying not to be a stranger, as every episode gets recorded. You're episode 18, I believe, so far. Knock on wood. But the family keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I've always sucked at sending out birthday cards to my immediate family. Now I have this group of people. So if you don't hear from me for a while, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, no, I don't. As somebody,
I'm sure you know that.
I know it completely. I know it completely. I have to, like, people send me shirts from time to time, and I'm like, I always have to tell them, like,
who's that?
I might not reciprocate because I'm in a fog of my own self-importance. So it's difficult for me.
Understandable. But it's
yeah.
a good problem to have. It's a good.
I guess, yeah. Plus, I have too many. Like, I need to have shirt again, and now, like, it's out of control. So.
Oh man. Well, say hi to Kevin. Kevin, your dog. I enjoy seeing the posts with Kevin in there. And you take good care, Ian, and keep up the good work.
Have a good day.